No one noticed the human girl at first. That was the mistake. In a galaxy that measured strength by claws, armor, and raw size, humans were still considered an experiment. Fragile bodies. Short lifespans. Too emotional. Too loud. Too curious. The Galactic Alliance allowed them into shared institutions mostly out of politeness, and partly out of curiosity. What happens when a Deathworld species is placed among creatures who have never known true extinction? The answer began at Astra Prime Combat Academy. The academy floated above a blue gas giant, a massive ring of steel and glass where future officers of dozens of species trained together. Its halls echoed with alien languages, clanking exoskeletons, and the quiet hum of technology older than human civilization itself. It was a place of rules, of hierarchy, of power. And today, those rules were about to bend. The human cadet was named Ilara Nox. She was not tall, not imposing, no sharp teeth or armored skin. Just a lean young woman with dark eyes that noticed everything and a posture that suggested calm, not weakness. Humans called it discipline. Other species mistook it for submission. Ilara was paired with Iris, a small avian alien from a low-gravity garden world. His bones were hollow, his wings delicate, his species known more for diplomacy than combat. The Academy had accepted him for diversity inclusion, a phrase whispered with amusement by stronger races. Ilara did not laugh. She trained with Iris every day, helped him adjust his balance under higher gravity, shared food rations when his metabolism struggled, corrected his stance gently, never mocking, never rushing. To her, he was not fragile. He was her teammate. That made him a target. The training session was routine, close-quarters drills under live supervision. Instructors watched from raised platforms while cadets sparred below. The commander in charge was Draven Kor, a decorated veteran from a war-born species whose culture valued dominance above all else. His medals were real. His patience was not. When Iris stepped into the ring opposite a larger cadet from Draven's own species, the commander smiled. "Elimination round," Draven announced. "No intervention unless fatal." Ilara's head turned. That was not standard protocol. Iris hesitated, feathers ruffling in nervous patterns. His opponent advanced immediately, too fast, too aggressive. The first blow sent Iris skidding across the floor. The second shattered the stabilizer brace on his wing. Ilara took one step forward. "Cadet Nox," an instructor warned. "Stay in your lane." The third strike was unnecessary. It crushed Iris into the barrier wall. His body folded in a way bodies should not fold. Feathers scattered. The ring fell silent except for the sharp sound of fractured bone. Medical alarms activated too late. Ilara did not scream. She did not run. She simply stood still. Those closest to her felt something change, though none could name it. Her breathing slowed. Her shoulders relaxed. Her hands unclenched. Humans did that sometimes. Draven Kor watched medics carry Iris away and dismissed the session with a flick of his hand. "Training is harsh," he said loudly. "Those who cannot endure should not be here." His eyes found Ilara. "Consider this a lesson." Ilara met his gaze for exactly 3 seconds. Then she nodded. That frightened more experienced soldiers than any shout could have. Over the next 2 days, nothing happened. Iris survived, barely. His species healed slowly under high gravity, and the doctors were uncertain whether he would ever fly again. The incident report listed the cause as training escalation within acceptable limits. No fault assigned. Ilara attended classes, completed drills, ate meals, slept. She even smiled. But those who trained beside her noticed details. She began requesting access to older combat archives, human ones. She adjusted her training schedule to overlap with different species, observing movement patterns, strength thresholds, recovery times. She asked questions. Not emotional questions. Technical ones. How much force could a reinforced shoulder joint endure before structural failure? How fast did Croval-type muscle fibers react to pain signals? How long did regeneration truly take if nerve clusters were damaged first? The Academy database answered. Humans were very good at turning information into tools. On the third day, Commander Draven announced a live demonstration. A morale event. An exhibition match to restore confidence in Academy standards. He chose Ilara Nox as his example. The crowd gathered quickly. Cadets of every species filled the observation tiers. No one expected the human to win. Some expected her to be humiliated. A few feared something else entirely, though they could not explain why. Draven stepped into the ring, towering, confident, protected by rank and reputation. Ilara Nox, he said, voice amplified. You will engage me. Non-lethal force only. Ilara stepped forward. Yes, Commander. She carried no weapon. Neither did he. That was his choice. The match began. Draven moved first, as expected. Fast. Brutal. Overwhelming. His opening strike cracked the floor where Ilara's head had been a moment earlier. She had already moved. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest either. But they were adaptive. Ilara stayed close. Too close. Inside his reach. She struck joints, not armor. Distracted with feints. Let him believe she was desperate. She waited. When Draven overextended, just once, she acted. The sound echoed across the arena, a sharp, wet crack followed by silence. Draven screamed. His arm did not fall immediately. It hung for a heartbeat, still attached by skin and tendon, before gravity finished the sentence Ilara had started. The arena froze. Ilara stepped back, breathing hard, pain evident in her posture, but her eyes were clear. She looked at the fallen commander. Then she spoke, calmly, clearly, for all to hear. This is not revenge, she said. This is correction. Security forces rushed in. Medics followed. No one touched Ilara. No one wanted to. Somewhere in the medical wing, Iris opened his eyes and felt, for the first time since the injury, something warmer than pain. Justice. And across the Academy, a quiet realization spread. Humans did not break rules loudly. They studied them. Then they showed everyone why those rules existed in the first place. By the next morning, Astra Prime Combat Academy felt like a different station. Not because of alarms or lockdowns, though both had happened. Not because of the bloodstains on the practice ring, though maintenance crews had scrubbed them until the metal shone. Not even because Commander Draven Corps had been flown to surgical regeneration with half his command staff screaming into comms. It felt different because of the silence. Every species at the Academy had a reputation. Some were strong. Some were clever. Some were ancient enough to have written the laws everyone else obeyed. Humans were new. That was their label. But now they had a second label, whispered in corridors and mess halls like a warning. Unpredictable. Ilara Nox returned to her schedule as if nothing unusual had happened. She attended tactical theory in the morning, stood at attention in formation, and completed endurance drills without complaint. She spoke politely to instructors. She submitted a written statement to internal review. The statement was short. I acted to prevent future harm to cadets under my protection. I accept the consequences. That was all. The Academy did not know what to do with her. A normal cadet would have been restrained immediately. But the match had been recorded. Draven had declared it a demonstration. He had ordered non-lethal force, yes, but he also chose unarmed engagement against a human, a Deathworlder, in front of witnesses. If the Academy punished Ilara too harshly, the Human Diplomatic Council would demand investigation. And no one wanted that. Because humans never arrived alone. They arrived with cameras, lawyers, data trails, and that strange human habit of turning a single injustice into a galaxy-wide story. For 48 hours, Ilara was left alone. Under monitoring, of course. Guards watched her door. Cameras followed her in halls. Drones tracked her biometrics. But she did not act like a criminal. She acted like someone waiting for a question. Meanwhile, in the medical wing, Iris's condition worsened. The brace on his wing had failed, and the internal fracture had shifted. His organs were not designed for heavy gravity, and stress had pushed his body toward shock. The doctors did what they could, but even advanced alien medicine had limits when a body simply refused to cooperate. Ilara visited him at night. Not with speeches. Not with anger. She sat by his recovery pod and spoke softly, telling him ordinary things. What the class had covered. Which cadet slipped during drills. How the mess hall still served the same tasteless nutrient broth. Iris's feathers remained dull. But his eyes followed her voice. On the third night after the match, Iris made a sound, weak, almost drowned by the pod's filters. Ilara leaned closer. "I'm sorry," Iris whispered, voice trembling with pain. "I made trouble for you." Ilara's expression did not change, but her hand pressed flat against the glass. "You didn't make trouble," she said. "You revealed it." Iris's eyes watered. His feathers flickered a soft grey-blue. Sadness. Shame. "They said I didn't belong." Ilara nodded slowly. "They're wrong." That was the moment a shadow moved in the doorway. Ilara turned. 2 Academy officers stood there, both from Draven species. Tall. Broad. Wearing formal black armor, the kind reserved for internal enforcement. Their nameplates marked them as Lieutenant Varric and Lieutenant Sen, Draven's closest loyalists. Varric spoke first. "Cadet Knox. You are ordered to report for disciplinary assessment." Ilara stood. Calm. "I will, after I finish here." Sen stepped forward. "Now." Ilara looked back at Iris's pod. Her eyes softened slightly. "I'll be back," she told him. Then she walked out without resistance. The corridor outside the medical wing was bright and empty. The officers did not take her toward the official disciplinary chambers. They took her toward a storage block. Ilara noted it instantly. No cameras. No public terminals. No traffic. Varric glanced over his shoulder and smiled without warmth. "You are not popular," he said. "You embarrassed our commander." Ilara's voice remained steady. "Your commander hurt a cadet." Sen snorted. "That cadet was weak. Weakness wastes resources." Ilara stopped walking. Both officers stopped with her. Varric's hand shifted toward his shock baton. "Keep moving." Ilara looked at him like she was solving a math problem. "How many people know you're here?" she asked. Sen narrowed his eyes. "Enough." Ilara nodded, as if that confirmed something. Then she continued walking, only now her steps were measured differently. Not slower. Not faster. Just placed. They reached the storage block door. Varric keyed it open. Inside was a large equipment bay, dimly lit, filled with crates and training gear. The door sealed behind them with a heavy hiss. Sen moved first. He swung the baton at Ilara's head with casual confidence, as if swatting an insect. Ilara ducked. Her movement was small. Efficient. Like she had rehearsed it. The baton whistled above her, missing by centimeters. Before Sen could recover, Ilara stepped in and drove her palm into his wrist. A clean crack. Sen screamed, baton dropping. His hand bent the wrong way. Varric lunged, aiming for her throat with both hands. Ilara did not retreat. She moved sideways, guided his momentum, and slammed his shoulder into a steel crate. The crate dented. Varric howled, rage flaring. He swung again, and this time his fist clipped her cheek. Ilara staggered back. Blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. Varric grinned. "There you are," he growled. "Finally bleeding." Ilara wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. Then she smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile you see right before a storm hits land. "You made one mistake," she said softly. Varric sneered. "Only one." Ilara's eyes flicked to the sealed door. "You trapped yourself in a room with a human who already decided she wasn't going to lose anyone again." She moved. This time, there was no hesitation. No waiting. No playing weak. Ilara struck Varroc's knee with a sharp kick. He dropped instantly, joint buckling under the sudden angle. Before he could scream fully, she grabbed his helmet edge and slammed his head into the crate. Once. Twice. The metal rang like a bell. Varroc went limp. Sen crawled backward, panicked, cradling his broken wrist. Stop. Stop. You'll be executed. Ilara turned slowly. Her breathing was controlled, but her eyes were bright now. Alive. You still don't understand humans, she said. She approached Sen, crouched to his level. When a human is scared, we run. When we're angry, we shout. But when someone hurts the helpless, and the people in charge laugh. She leaned closer. We get quiet. Because quiet is when we plan. Sen's pupils widened. We didn't, he wasn't. Ilara stood and stepped away. She did not kill him. Instead, she picked up the fallen baton and tossed it at his feet. Go, she said. And tell whoever sent you that the next time they come near Iris. Her voice dropped colder. They won't leave with just a broken wrist. Sen ran. He hit the door panel repeatedly until it opened, then stumbled out into the corridor like a creature escaping fire. Ilara remained inside for a moment, breathing, thinking. Then she turned back to Varroc's unconscious body. She pulled his comm unit from his armor and activated it. A red light blinked. Open channel. She spoke into it calmly. Cadet Knox reporting, she said. Lieutenant Varroc attempted an unauthorized punishment procedure in Storage Block 19. I defended myself. Medical support required. Then she ended the call. She stepped back into the corridor, walked toward the medical wing, and ignored the distant sound of running boots. By the time she reached Iris's pod, security teams were already swarming through the facility. Officers shouted. Drones hovered. Weapons unlocked. Ilara didn't care. She sat beside the pod again, like she had never left. When Iris opened his eyes and saw her face bruised, he tried to move, tried to speak. Ilara raised a hand gently. Sure, she said. Rest. Iris's feathers flickered weakly. Fear. Worry. They'll hurt you, he whispered. Ilara looked at him with something that wasn't anger anymore. It was promise. They can try, she said. Outside the medical bay, the Academy finally understood something important. This wasn't a fight between cadets. This was a clash between an old galaxy and a new species that refused to accept cruelty as tradition. And the galaxy was about to learn that human stubbornness was not a personality trait. It was a weapon. By the time Astra Prime Combat Academy officially went into containment posture, it was already too late. Containment posture was meant for riots, chemical leaks, or hostile boarding actions. It was not designed for one calm human cadet who kept walking where she wanted, saying exactly what she meant, and refusing to be afraid. Ilara Knox had been escorted, politely this time, to an observation chamber overlooking the central courtyard. 3 senior officers waited for her. Different species. Different ranks. All equally tense. They did not offer restraints. That alone told Ilara everything. A tall insectoid officer spoke first, mandibles clicking softly. Cadet Knox, your recent actions have destabilized Academy order. Ilara Saturday. Straight-backed. Calm. Order was already unstable, she replied. I just made it visible. A reptilian strategist narrowed his eyes. You assaulted 2 officers. They assaulted me, Ilara said. Off camera. In violation of protocol. I reported it immediately. The 3rd officer, a silver-skinned diplomat species, folded her hands. Commander Draven has filed a formal complaint. He claims your actions were premeditated. Ilara nodded once. They were. The room went still. You admit it? The insectoid asked. I planned to stop further abuse, Ilara said. Yes. That includes tearing a commander's arm from his body, the reptilian snapped. Ilara met his gaze without blinking. That included neutralizing a threat. Silence stretched. This was not how interrogations were supposed to go. Ilara wasn't defensive. She wasn't pleading. She wasn't even angry. She spoke like someone explaining gravity. The diplomat leaned forward. Cadet Knox, do you understand how dangerous this situation is? Your species is still under observation. This academy represents decades of fragile cooperation. Ilara tilted her head slightly. Then maybe it shouldn't protect people who hurt the weak. That was the moment the conversation stopped being academic. An alarm chimed softly in the room. The diplomat touched her wrist console, then froze. The medical bay, she said slowly. We have a problem. Ilara's eyes sharpened. Iris. The reptilian cursed. His crashing. They did not stop Ilara when she stood. They did not try to restrain her. Because in that moment, every being in the room realized the truth. If they blocked her now, the consequences would be worse. They moved fast through the corridors. Faster than protocol. Security teams cleared the way instinctively, stepping aside as Ilara passed. No one met her eyes. Inside the medical bay, the air smelled wrong. Sharp. Metallic. Machines pulsed too fast. Iris lay rigid in the pod, feathers dull, chest barely moving. His vitals were failing one system at a time. His body was rejecting the regenerative process. The nurse on duty, an amphibious species with trembling hands, looked up desperately. We're losing him. His nervous system can't adapt. We need a specialized environment. But the academy doesn't have one, Ilara finished. The nurse nodded. Ilara stared at the pod. Then she did something no one expected. She laughed. Not loudly. Not joyfully. Once. Sharp. Almost bitter. Of course, she said. You built an academy for warriors, and forgot mercy needs engineering too. She turned to the officers behind her. I need access, she said. To a fabrication lab. Medical override. The reptilian frowned. You are not a certified. I'm human, Ilara cut in. And my species is very good at improvising when someone is dying. The diplomat hesitated for less than a second. Then she nodded. Give her what she needs. The fabrication lab came alive under Ilara's hands. She moved with purpose, not panic. Requested materials. Adjusted gravity fields. Modified life support interfaces. She talked while she worked, not to anyone in particular. Humans evolved fixing broken bodies with limited tools, she said. Bones, nerves, organs. We learned by failing and trying again. We don't wait for permission when the clock is running. She rerouted systems. Adapted the pod's field generators. Lowered gravity incrementally to match Iris's homeworld physiology. Adjusted oxygen mix manually. The machines protested. Ilara ignored them. After 26 minutes, the alarm slowed. After 30, Iris's breathing stabilized. After 40, color returned to his feathers, faint, but unmistakable. The medical staff stared in disbelief. The nurse whispered, You rewrote half our protocols. Ilara wiped sweat from her forehead. Her hands trembled now that the danger had passed. Protocols are suggestions, she said. Friends are not. News spread fast. Faster than the academy could control. By the next cycle, word of what happened had reached beyond Astra Prime. Footage leaked. Reports circulated. A human cadet had dismantled a commander, survived an internal hit attempt, and then saved an alien life by ignoring established rules. Human diplomatic channels lit up. So did alien ones. Some species were angry. Others were frightened. A few were impressed. A formal hearing was announced. Public. Broadcast. The academy had no choice. Ilara stood in the central forum days later, flanked by representatives from half the galaxy. Iris watched from the medical balcony, supported but awake. His feathers shimmered faint green. Commander Draven appeared via holo, his regeneration incomplete, his remaining arms folded tight. The charges were red. Assault. Disobedience. Excessive force. Ilara listened quietly. When given the chance to speak, she did not raise her voice. She did not apologize. I was taught, she said, that strength exists to protect those who cannot protect themselves. If this academy believes otherwise, then it is not training soldiers. It is training bullies with uniforms. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. She continued. You hurt my friend. You laughed. You hid behind tradition and rank. Humans have a word for that. She paused. Injustice. Draven snarled. You are dangerous. Ilara nodded. Yes. That answer echoed longer than any speech. The forum recessed in chaos. But one thing was clear now to every watching species. Humans were not trying to dominate the galaxy. They were trying to correct it. And they would not stop just because someone told them to. The hearing did not end with a verdict. That, more than anything else, unsettled the galaxy. Astra Prime Combat Academy had always been decisive. Swift rulings. Clean punishments. Authority maintained. But when Ilara Nox finished speaking, the forum dissolved into arguments so intense that the presiding council suspended judgment entirely. No one wanted to be the one who chose wrong. Because this was no longer about one human cadet or one injured commander. This was about what kind of galaxy they were building. Ilara was confined to her quarters, not as a prisoner, but for her safety. The phrase made her almost smile. Guards were posted outside her door, rotated frequently. None of them spoke to her. A few avoided eye contact altogether. Inside the room, Ilara sat on her bunk and waited. Humans were very good at waiting. Across the station, reactions spread like fire through dry air. Some species demanded immediate expulsion of all human cadets. They called humans unstable, violent, incompatible with civilized military structures. They cited statistics. They cited fear. Others spoke just as loudly in defense. The smaller species, the ones who had learned to survive by staying quiet, began sharing stories. Cadets injured in training accidents. Careers ended by commanders who mistook cruelty for strength. Complaints buried. Reports erased. Ilara's case gave those stories a spine. For the first time, witnesses spoke publicly. A Zenthax engineer testified that Draven had once ordered a live-fire exercise without safety dampeners to build character. A mollusk-based cadet described being thrown into a vacuum drill despite medical exemptions. The patterns became impossible to ignore. Iris watched the proceedings from his recovery chamber, his wing bound but healing. Every time Ilara's name appeared on a screen, his feathers shifted with worry. She shouldn't have done it for me, he whispered to the nurse. The nurse shook her head gently. She didn't do it only for you, she said. You were just the spark. Then something happened that no one predicted. The human delegation arrived. Not soldiers. Not warships. Observers. Doctors. Ethicists. Legal specialists. A few quiet figures who didn't introduce themselves at all. They requested access to the Academy's historical records. The Academy granted it reluctantly. Humans read everything. They cross-referenced incident reports with medical data, training casualties with promotion records. They noticed how often accidents aligned with the preferences of certain commanders. And they published their findings. Not as threats. As documentation. The galaxy watched as humans calmly laid out decades of abuse patterns across multiple institutions, not just Astra Prime. They used simple language. Clear timelines. No exaggeration. Just facts. That was when the narrative shifted. The phrase Deathworld aggression began disappearing from official statements. It was replaced with something far more uncomfortable. Accountability. Commander Draven was recalled from duty pending full investigation. Sergeant-level instructors across the Academy were suspended. Training protocols were frozen. For the first time in its history, Astra Prime Combat Academy shut down live combat exercises. Ilara was summoned again, this time not to a hearing, but to a private chamber. The same diplomat sat across from her, posture weary. You've changed things, she said. Ilara nodded. That was the idea. You understand there will be consequences, the diplomat continued. Some species will never trust humans again. Ilara met her gaze calmly. Some already didn't. The diplomat exhaled slowly. And if we ask you to leave the academy? Ilara did not answer immediately. She thought of Earth. Of gravity and oceans and skies that tried to kill humans every day and failed. She thought of Iris, struggling but alive. Of other cadets who now walked a little taller. If I leave, she said, it will be because I choose to. Not because someone tried to scare me away. The diplomat gave a tired smile. You really don't back down. Ilara shrugged. We evolved that way. That night, something else happened. Quietly, without announcement. Several non-human cadets requested transfers. Not away from the academy. Into human-led units. They cited reasons like adaptive leadership and ethical alignment, but the truth was simpler. They felt safer. In the days that followed, Ilara was released from confinement. Not cleared. Not punished. Just free. She walked the corridors again. This time, people looked at her openly. Some with awe. Some with fear. Some with gratitude. Iris waited for her near the observation deck, supported by a brace but standing on his own feet. When he saw her, his feathers bloomed bright green. You stayed, he said softly. Ilara smiled, real this time. So did you. They stood together, looking out at the gas giant below, swirling and violent and beautiful. You know, Iris said, my people believed strength was about avoiding conflict. Ilara nodded. Humans tried that too. Didn't work. What is it about you? He asked. Why push so hard? Ilara thought for a moment. Because, she said, if someone like me doesn't push back, people like you keep getting hurt. Above them, the stars burned quietly. And across the galaxy, institutions that had never feared consequences before began updating their policies. Not because humans threatened them, but because humans showed they were willing to stand alone if that's what justice required. And that kind of species changed history. History rarely announces itself when it changes. There is no thunder. No dramatic music. Just a quiet moment where the future chooses a different path. For Astra Prime Combat Academy, that moment came 3 weeks after Ilara Nox broke a commander's arm and refused to apologize for it. The official verdict was released without ceremony. Ilara Nox was cleared of criminal wrongdoing. The wording mattered. Not forgiven. Not excused. Cleared. The Academy concluded that Commander Draven Core had violated multiple training ethics statutes, abused authority, and fostered a hostile environment. His injury was ruled a consequence of reckless leadership during an unsanctioned demonstration. Draven was stripped of rank. His name was quietly removed from the Academy's Hall of Commanders. That silence was louder than any punishment. Ilara was offered a choice. She could return to normal cadet status. Or she could leave, honorably discharged, her record sealed, her future untouched. The offer came from the council itself. Ilara asked for one thing before deciding. I want to see the new training protocols. They showed her. Safeguards. Oversight. Medical authority with real power. Anonymous reporting systems that could not be buried by rank. Mixed species ethics instruction. Mandatory. Not perfect. But better. Ilara nodded once. I'll stay, she said. Someone should test whether this works. The council did not argue. Life at the academy resumed, but it was not the same life as before. Commanders spoke more carefully. Instructors watched their tone. Cadets, especially the smaller, quieter ones, walked with a little less fear in their steps. And humans? Humans were no longer treated as fragile. They were treated as serious. Iris healed slowly, but fully. His wing never regained its old grace, but it carried him well enough. He switched from combat specialization to tactical coordination, where his pattern recognition outperformed cadets twice his size. He thrived. On the day he was cleared for full duty, Ilara waited outside the medical bay. "I owe you," Iris said. Ilara shook her head. "No. I would have quit," he admitted. "Gone home. Stayed quiet." She met his eyes. "And the next one like you." Iris's feathers shifted, thoughtful this time. "I'll speak up," he said. "For them." That was how change really spread. Not through fear. Through permission. Months passed. Human-led mixed units formed. They weren't the strongest or fastest, but they adapted. They shared knowledge freely. They planned for failure instead of denying it existed. They won exercises they were never supposed to win. Other academies began copying Ustroprime's reforms, not because they wanted to, but because their cadets started asking why not. And humans? Humans kept doing what they always did. They asked uncomfortable questions. They noticed who was being ignored. They refused to pretend cruelty was tradition. Ilara graduated a year later. No grand speech. No dramatic salute. Just a quiet ceremony and a file stamped eligible for command. She declined immediate promotion. Instead, she requested assignment to frontier integration units, places where misunderstandings still turned violent, where systems were old and justice slower. When asked why, she gave the same answer she always did. Someone has to be there when it matters. Years later, long after Ilara Knox became a name in ethics briefings and leadership simulations, new cadets would hear the story. Sometimes incorrectly. They'd say a human tore a commander's arm off with rage. They'd say she did it for revenge. The truth was simpler. And more dangerous. She did it because someone crossed a line. And humans, when they see a line crossed, don't always shout. Sometimes they go quiet. They learn the rules. They master the system. And then, very carefully, they remind the galaxy why those rules existed in the first place. That was why, even centuries later, there was an unofficial saying in academy halls across the stars. Train hard. Lead fairly. And never hurt someone who has a human friend. Because the galaxy learned something that day. Not all strength roars. Some of it stands still, looks you in the eye, and decides the future will be different.